Here's a story. Growing up, your mom has you living from place to place as she is constantly in and out of abusive relationships. Every so often, she sends you to your dad's where he'd sexually assault you since the age of 5. Eventually, your mom's boyfriend beats her to death in front of you and your brother, and you're sent to your dad's where he now violates you every night. One day, your father's girlfriend catches him, calls the police, and now you're sent to live with your aunt. Shortly after being there at 14 years old, you wake up to your aunt's husband on top of you. He apologizes and never touches you again. Your boyfriend at the time gets you pregnant and you continue life in and out of the system. 34 years later, you get an Ancestry DNA test done for everyone in your home, where your grandchild comes back as being related to someone you knew as a child. It turns out that someone was related to your aunt's husband, and the night he was on top of you, he actually raped and impregnated you, and the uncle you knew growing up is actually your child's father, Trappin Anonymous.
I didn't want to do anything that was going to hurt my daughter even more. And so I asked my daughter, what did she feel? And she was like, Mama, just leave it alone. You told me it only happened once. You said that he apologized at the time that he did it. Just leave it alone. And she said, give me a chance to talk to him. Let me talk to him. And if it wasn't for her, he'd be in jail.
What's good? My name is Chris Styles. It's Trappin Anonymous. Welcome back. Welcome back. Shout out to everybody helping keeping the movement moving. We really do appreciate you if you are sitting there with a story and year after year, day after day, interview after interview, you're just watching these shows and you think that you should be in that chair. Please reach out to me, DM me, email me at Trappin Anonymous, Trappin Anonymous on Facebook, trappinanonymous@gmail.com. Even on YouTube, just go to Trappin Anonymous. Find me there. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe to my channel as well. I'll also be in the comments. You can find my page and make sure you just hit that follow. I just really appreciate everyone that's been a part of this community and growing this platform to where it is today. I just ask that, you just keep it going. Keep it going. Keep growing and keep going. Do remember that the stories that you hear reflect real life. They're here to inform, they're here to educate, and keep your little homie off the streets. It's Trappin Anonymous. My name is Chris Styles. Let's get it. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
So I'd like to start with your name and why you think your story is important.
My name is Sandra, and I think my story is important to bring awareness to childhood sexual abuse that is pretty much formulated by generational curses, as well as domestic violence, survivors of those, and to help people find their voice and tell their story too. Everybody has some type of story that needs to be told, and I want to help them find that voice and tell their story.
Okay, so sort of bring me to your introduction to sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse started when I was 6 years old. My mom and my brother lived with my mom's girlfriend. And when we were living with her, my father lived probably about a couple blocks away with his parents. So he often come and take me over there with him, with his parents, until he finally moved in with his girlfriend, which I didn't even know he had at the time. And I would often be happy to see him because what kid ain't happy to see their parent when they is around one parent all the time. So I was always happy to see that absent parent. And as far back as I can remember, things was just normal. Father-daughter visit. It was nothing out of the normal. And so when he moved in with his girlfriend, I would go over to her house instead of going to my grandmother's house where he was staying at before. And she was like a regular stepmother, treated me just like she treated her kids. Anywhere her kids went, she took me with them, She was a very good cook. That's one of my fondest memories of her, is that she was an excellent cook. And I never had issues going over there. And then one day I went over there and I noticed that I wasn't going back home. Well, unbeknownst to me, my mom had asked my dad if I can stay there temporarily until she got back on her feet. And so I ended up moving in with them. And that's when things started to change. His girlfriend attitude completely changed towards me. Like, she no longer treated me like I was one of her kids. And I don't know if she was probably angry that my father made the decision to let me stay and didn't include her, because I noticed that they would argue a lot and it had to do with me. But she just got to a point where she started staying away from the home a lot, and she would take her kids with her and leave me behind, which is something she never did when I used to come over there for weekend visits. And when she started doing that, that's when he started molesting me. You know, that's when the years of abuse began, when she was leaving me alone with him.
What did he do to you?
He would basically take me in a room. It was a 3-bedroom house, so any one of the bedrooms, basically. I slept mostly in the back bedroom, and he would just have me take off my clothes and underwear. He would take off his clothes and underwear, and he would basically stick his penis between my legs. Well, actually, he would have me to turn over. It would never be from the front part. He would actually have me to turn over and lay on my stomach. And he would stick his penis between my legs, and he'd tell me to close my legs really tight, and he'd just hump on my butt until he ejaculated. Of course, I didn't know what that was at that time. And that was pretty much the basis of his sexual abuse.
How often is he doing this to you?
He was doing it a lot. Especially if I was left at home with him alone. But even when his girlfriend would be there, she can be up in the bedroom sleep. Her kids was in the room next to me sleep, and I had the back bedroom, and he would still come back there and do it. I mean, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't think what he was doing was wrong, because he was doing it like, to me, I felt it was open. I didn't know it was not open, but to me, I felt like this is open. Everybody's in the house. He never told me, don't tell nobody anything. He never told me that. I didn't know nothing about sex or good touch and bad touch. So I had no clue what he was doing was wrong.
So what kind of mother did you have? Was she kind back then? Was she?
My mom was kind, but she always was down on her luck. Like, as long as I can remember, I can probably count on 1 or 2 fingers how many times she actually had a place of her own. I mean, we just always bounced around from place to place.
Right. So you being now living with your dad, and this abuse is sort of going on, this becomes your new normal. For how
Yes.
long? How long does this go on for? How long are you living there?
So I I know I lived there long enough to start school, because I remember going to school from their house, and I believe I was like in first grade at the time, but I didn't stay at that school too long. So I would say probably close to a year or less than a year. My mom had actually moved closer to where my father was living with his girlfriend, surprisingly. And she was, again, living with some other people. These was random people. I didn't even really know them, you know. So now the tables were turned. Instead of me visiting my father on the weekend, now I'm visiting my mom on the
Wow.
weekend.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm happy to go see my mom on the weekend, because, like I said, things have started being different at my dad's house. And it was always nice to get away from that house, especially when my stepmother was not treating me like her stepchild anymore.
Right.
You know, and so I would always be excited to go over to my mom's place. She stayed in this house full of strangers to me, because I had never met them before. And she actually had a bed in the basement, not a bedroom, but a bed. It was like this open space in the basement where she slept in the bed at. So if I would come there and spend the weekend with her, I would sleep in the bed with her. And my mom had told me that, because there's no bathroom downstairs, there's this big wash tub, people usually use to drain their washing machine. That's what she told me to urinate at if I had to urinate. And of course, if I had to do number two, to come upstairs. Now, I don't know what my brother was at this time, because I rarely ever saw him with my mom when I would go visit her on the weekend. One of the weekends that I went to visit with my mom, I woke up while my mom was asleep. I woke up to this man was laying, I was probably laying on the right side of her. He was laying on the left side of her. And my mom was laying on her back. And I woke up to him sucking on her breast. And when I looked at him, he gave me this really strange look back at me. And I don't know, he made me feel like, not at the time, I didn't know what I was feeling, but later on I figured it out, that he wanted me to watch what he was doing to my mom, as if he wanted me to enjoy what I was watching. You know, I'm only, what, 6, 7 years old. And my mom was just laying there like she did not budge. She never opened her eyes. She never moved. She never flinched. I got up to go walk to the wash tub to use the bathroom like she, told me to do if I had to use the bathroom, not knowing he was following behind me. And when I climbed up on the tub, he was standing right there. I urinated, and before I can wipe myself and get down, he held my legs open, and he began to perform oral on me. Of course, I didn't know what oral was back then, because that was the first time that had ever happened to me. And so I just sat there, I didn't know what to do. And when he was done, I walked back over to the bed with my mama, and he continued to perform oral on me while my mama just laying there. My mom, again, she didn't budge, she didn't flinch, she didn't open her eyes, she didn't turn, she didn't do anything until he was done.
And so, was your mother on drugs?
I can't even answer that. I can't even answer that. I don't know if she was in a
asleep?
drunk coma. I don't know what it was, but she did not budge.
I mean, for a 7-year-old, 6-year-old child, I can't even imagine. And then he stops and he just goes about his business, or he stays
No,
with
he
you?
stopped with me and he went back to doing what he was doing to her. He went back to, sucking on her breasts and stuff.
Was this a common occurrence, or was this just the
That
one
was
time?
just that one time.
Okay. And now you go back to your father's house. So now you're in the midst of two men sexually assaulting you, and what's going on in your mind as a child?
Nothing really, because again, I didn't know what they was doing was wrong.
Right.
So it's not really nothing going on in my mind. I'm just still living life as a kid, the best way I know how. My mom, she had ended up married. She met a man and married him. We never met the guy before she married him. And he was very physically abusive to her. He was never physically abusive to me and my brother, but what people don't understand about physical abuse, even if the abuser don't touch the children are still being abused mentally, because this was the first time we were experiencing this, and it was scary. We were both young. It was scary to watch him beat on my mom the way that he did. She eventually left him. We later learned that she was pregnant after her stomach popped out. Like, she never told us that she was pregnant. And she ended up losing the baby. After she lost her baby, she spiraled again. And we ended up moving back into her friend's house, the friend we was originally staying at when my father would come get me on the weekend. And when we were staying with her, my mom would just take off, for days at a time. And her friend was getting mad, like, you just taking off, leaving your kids behind. I understood, but her disciplines was pretty harsh. And I think part of the reason was because of her anger towards my mom. So it got to a point where I wanted to be with my mother. So every time my mom left that house, I'm flying out that door with her. And so when I was going with my mom, she started taking me over to these random men's house. Like, I didn't know any of these men. I had never met any of these men. But what was strange about visiting these men is that shortly after we get to their home, my mom would leave and leave me there. You know, and I was thinking maybe she was just running to the store, coming right back or something like that. But these men would start molesting me. You know, as if they knew she wasn't coming right back. Like they would immediately start the minute she walked out the door.
How often would this go on?
That happened a couple times. It's only one that I remember in particular because that was the one time that it really frightened me. And that was the time when she left me with this man. I remember when she first left, we both were sitting in the front room watching TV. And then the minute she left, he went to the bedroom. And then he called me to the bedroom. He had the TV on still in the bedroom. And then he started asking me questions like he would point at my private area and ask me, do I know what that is? And I told him, yeah. I said, it's my kitty cat, because that's what my mom taught me what my private area was. Then he showed his penis and asked me if I knew what that was. I told him no. And while he was sitting there, I would see him like rubbing his penis up and down, but the skin was going all the way over the penis. Like I didn't learn until years later he was uncircumcised. And so somehow he got me to start putting my mouth over his penis. He was asking me to put his penis in my mouth. And I did it because he told me to do it. Again, I didn't know what I was doing was wrong, but I immediately noticed that I didn't like that taste. So when I kept trying to tell him I didn't want to do it no more, when he kept trying to get me to, finish, and I kept shaking my head, no, he will force my head. He had my head down and he will force my head over his penis. And that was one time which was the most terrifying time of my life because I've never had nobody to force themselves like that. You know what I'm saying? And it was definitely something I didn't like. And so after that, I started going places with my mom. I stopped going. I'm like, because it was easier for me to just stay back with her friend and take the harsh disciplines if I get in trouble than to go with her.
How old are you?
I don't know, probably 7, 8. I was still young.
Okay, so you mentioned that. It's insane. You mentioned that the other guys didn't forcefully do that to you. What were the other guys doing to you?
I never was getting really penetrated by anybody. And he was the only one that forced me to perform oral. Now later, yeah, my father tried to get me to do it, but he didn't force me.
While all of this is going on, you're still going back to Dad's house.
Yeah, I'm still going to his house over the weekends.
And
he's still molesting me. That never stopped. Got a girlfriend and everything. That never stopped. And when I stopped going with my mom, I stayed behind at her friend's house. And her friend had a 3-bedroom apartment, and one of the bedrooms was her teenage sons. And he probably was about 16, 17 at that time, but he had a baby at the age of 14.
Wow.
And so when he wasn't there at home a lot because he would often go stay the night with his baby mama. So when he wouldn't be there, I would just lay in his bedroom. And sometimes he would come home because he had like the most breeziest bedroom in the whole house. Sometimes when he come home, if I'm laying in his bed, he would just get in the sofa that's in his room. Or if I'm laying on his sofa, he'll just jump in his bed. But then it started getting to a point where if I'm laying in the bed, he would just come in there and just lay on top of me. And he would start grinding on me, which I didn't know what that was back then. But he never took his clothes off, and I never took my clothes off. He would just jump on top of me, and he would just hump on me. And so that was my next experience of abuse, when I thought I was safe just staying back and not running out with my mom.
Wow. It just keeps.
Yeah, it just kept going. My grandmother and my mom had a lot of, well, my step grandmother, I always looked at her as grandmother. They had a lot of tension between them, and this is how I learned that it was because of the infidelity that my grandfather did. So we didn't stay with her too long. She was a very strict grandmother, but she was a very smart, and she had her reasons for being strict. So my mom had decided she couldn't be with her no more, and she decided she wanted to move to Detroit with her brother. I knew about my uncle, but I had never met him. So when we moved out there, I was excited. Like, I'm finally getting to meet the uncle that my mom always talked about. So when we moved there, I'm thinking that everything was normal, just like uncle, sister, niece relationship. And so he wanted to help my mom get back on her feet. He helped her get her place, but my mom didn't stay there long. My mom decided she wanted to go back to Chicago. So when my mom decided she wanted to go back to Chicago, she left with my brother on a Greyhound, and she left me behind with my uncle. I'm not understanding why she left me behind with him, but that was her decision at the time. She had told me it was just to the rest of the summer, and we was not, I think we was like in the middle of the summer by then, so it wasn't too much longer. And so when I when soon as she left, like, I don't think she fastened her seatbelt on that bus before he started molesting me. Like he was waiting on her to leave to start this. Now this whole time we was down there, when we first got there, he did nothing such of the kind. He never even showed no type of signs of being abusive uncle until right after she got on that Greyhound bus. He was laying in his room on his bed with his penis in his hand, and he provocatively called me, "Sandra, girl, get in here. Come in here and take off them panties." And I remember I complied. I took off my panties and I got into bed with him. Now, I don't remember the details after that, but I do remember him touching me and never looking at him the same. Never, because that was my first experience of being around him, and it was such a horrible experience.
Do you think that he raped you that day?
I know he did. I know he did, because I know how I felt about him over the years. I never looked at him the same.
And that was your first time being penetrated?
I don't, probably. I don't know.
Wow. It seems like your mother's just leaving you with these random men as, I don't know, like payment, or like she's selling you, or she's like, because every time she drops you off at these random men's homes and then she leaves, sexual abuse happens and then she picks you up.
Yeah.
That seems like a system that she hasn't, like a barter system, something that she's doing in exchange for something.
Yeah. I agree.
So now you have to endure this uncle for an entire summer?
For the rest of the summer, yep.
And how often is he?
Oh, it happened pretty often.
And what is he?
Because me and him the only one that's in the house. Nobody else lived in that apartment but him and I. He found ways to either make me do things to him, or he was doing things to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What happens next?
So finally my mom came back and got me, and she finally got her own place. She started working at a bar down the street from where we stayed at, and as a bartender. And that's when she met the man of her nightmares at this bar.
Before she meets the man of her nightmares, does she ever just say, "Hey, what happened at so and so's house? Hey," Did anything happen to you, or hey, what y'all guys ended up doing?
Nobody ever asked me about stuff like that.
Did you ever say, hey, Mom, when you left me there, it just, I'm so sorry you had to do that. Like, seriously. Okay, so she meets the man of her nightmares. Why do you say that?
Because he was a man of her nightmares. He was very, very abusive. When she brought him home, first of all, even though she finally had her place, it was a very small place. Probably wasn't no bigger than this little room right here. And it had like a small bathroom and a kitchenette, and there was a full bath or a bath with a tub on the floor for everybody who lived in an apartment to share. So we we was already poor, and he didn't have nothing to offer. We had a building manager that lived in the building that kind of kept the building up, and my mom used to send me to his apartment all the time to let him know when there was things that needed to be done. This building manager, he had a small, I think all apartments in the building was pretty small, studio apartments. But his apartment was like really nice, like really comfortable. And it got to a point where I just started going down to his apartment just for the comfortability. He had a TV. We didn't even have a TV. That's how poor we was. We had no TV, no phone, no nothing. And so, and he didn't mind, he'll let me come down there and watch television. I remember one time confiding in him about, the struggles in our house, and hoping he never tell my mom, because the boyfriend that she met at the place, he had a really nice mom, and she tried to help out by, bringing us food every now and then. And I remember telling her one day that, I can't never go on my field trips because my mom couldn't afford to pay for the trip, and she couldn't afford for me to have the lunch that you needed to take on a trip. So we had a field trip coming up, and she was nice enough to give me the money to pay for the trip and even buy the lunch. But my mom found out about it, tore my ass up. I'll never forget that ass whooping. So after then, I didn't want to ask nobody for nothing. So when I was telling this building manager about that, he started slipping me money. And I wouldn't tell my mama I had the money. In fact, I went to a school that let students out during lunchtime. So I would sneak across the store or the restaurant and spend the money before I got home. And so it started getting to a point where, well, one day, I ain't gonna say a point because it only happened one day I was at his house, his apartment, and he has this little sofa that sits at the foot of his bed, and it faces the TV because that's usually where I would sit at to watch the TV. And I remember waking up to this strange feeling. It felt like I had to pee real bad. And when I woke up, he was between my legs doing oral. Now, prior to this man had never touched me, ain't never tried to touch me or anything. And when I had that urge, I had to tell him to stop. I had to use the bathroom. And so I got up and I went to use the bathroom, but no urine came out. But I still kind of a little bit feel this little feeling that I'm having. And so when I came out the bathroom, I just went back upstairs to my apartment. Now, I later learned that that feeling was an orgasm. Now, that was my first experience having an orgasm. I didn't know that then. That's why I didn't know what was happening. I thought I had to urinate because that's how it felt like as a kid. I didn't know that I was having an orgasm. I didn't know what that meant.
And you were asleep?
Yeah, I was asleep. I woke up to him in the middle of in the middle of what he was doing. The orgasm woke me up. That's what woke me up. The orgasm woke me up.
Wow.
And I thought I had to urinate. And so when I got upstairs, my mom had asked me where I been. And I told her I was outside. She said one of the people in the building told her they saw me coming out of the building manager's apartment. And I denied it. And she's like, well, if I go down there and I found out you was in his apartment, I'm going to tear your ass up. I was scared that he would tell her that I was there. So I called myself running away from home that day, which was, I don't know where I was going. But of course, I ended up back, and my auntie brought me back to my mom, and my mom was still upset, but my auntie didn't want her to whoop me, so my auntie took me back home with her.
How old were you at that time?
It was probably still the same, about 10 years old.
Did you ever see the building manager again?
No, I was scared. Like, my mom put that fear in me. My mom put that fear in me. Plus, the abuse from my mom and her boyfriend, it was getting intense. Like, I didn't want to be there no more.
What do you mean abuse from your mom?
Like, he was getting really, like, the abuse maybe started off a little slapping around and stuff like that, but then it got to a point where this punching. Like, I'm telling you, we in a smaller room like this. And me and my little brother, who's 2 years younger than me, we have to witness this stuff. That stuff was scary, you know?
What do you witness him doing?
We witnessed him punching her in her face, punching her in her eye, punching her in her. So one time he put her in the hospital. And she lied to the hospitals about what really happened to her. You know, we didn't have a phone, so every time he jumped on her, I would run downstairs to the payphone to call 911. When the police showed up at the door and they asked her, did anybody call the police? She would say no. And that would just make me mad, you know?
What's the worst that had gotten between them?
When life ended. You know, so one day when I came in, I saw my mama sitting on a chair in a chair, and she had her hands under her lap, and she was just rocking back and forth, looking like a zombie. And she was looking bad. And I asked him what he do to her, because I just knew he had did something to her. And he looked at me and said, ask your brother what your mama did to herself. So I looked at my brother. Remind you, my brother, he's still a baby. He's still young. I asked my brother, I said, what happened to her? And he was real softly spoken, and he was like, she was putting a needle in her arm. This is my little brother saying this. Now, I didn't know about drugs too much back then, but I knew about it because my grandmother had just lost her son to a drug overdose not too long prior to that. I was done. I ended up moving out back with her friend, the same friend that I stayed with, that we had been staying on and off with over the years. I couldn't take it no more. I was always afraid that something was going to happen to her and that I would be a witness to it, and I didn't want to be a witness to it. So we found out that she didn't live in that apartment no more, that she actually moved closer to her friend. So me and her friend walked to where she was living at. She had us believing that she had left him and she was moving on with her life.
I would also assume that everyone else that's taking you in sort of knows your mom for being this really unstable person. The fact that they would even take you in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So when she took me in, we walked over there to see my mom. My mom's sitting right outside of the apartment building she moved in the same position that I saw her. With her arm under her leg, rocking back and forth. This time, her lip all busted open, her tongue all busted open. My brother was with her. We looked at my brother. We asked her what happened. He told us the boyfriend. Like, she told us she had left him, but she had not left him. He's still abusive to her. So while I'm staying with the friend, my father finds out I'm over there. Because of course I still get to go over his house on the weekend. So he finds out I'm at the friend house. So he comes to get me and take me back to him and his girlfriend house. And I guess his plan was to keep me over there.
All while still abusing you.
Right, right. And so my mom came over there later that evening with the police. And the police made him turn me back over to my mom. And he tried to, that was the funny part. He tried to tell the police how bad of a mom my mom was, leaving me off with everybody and this, that, and the other, like he was any better. I mean, he didn't leave me off with nobody, but dude, what you doing is not no better, you know? So they made him turn me back over and said if he had an issue to take me to court. So we all left, went back to my mom's friend house. And when we went back over there, my mom told me and my brother, okay, come on, we going home. And so we thought she had got another apartment, you know? We go and find out she done moved in with the abusive boyfriend and his family. So this is the new home. She swore by the Bible that he wasn't gonna do nothing to her no more. He swore by the Bible he wasn't gonna ever put his hands on her no more. One day my brother and I came in from outside. She had two big black eyes. Now my mom was mixed, so she was a very pretty light-skinned woman. Bruises looked bad on her. So she had two big black eyes, and he had the audacity to try to get rid of the black eyes by buying some leeches. I didn't even know what that was back then, but he bought some leeches and put it under her eyes to suck the blood to try to get rid of the blackness from around her eyes. Yeah. She was laying down with two leeches under her. I don't know where he got that thought from. But when I told my mom that I didn't want to live with her no more because I was tired of the abuse, tired of watching the physical abuse, that's when she decided she was going to check herself into a battered women's shelter. So we went into a battered women's shelter. Part of the battered women's shelter rules and regulations is that children cannot be left here unattended. Mm-hmm. And then they had to leave their abusive lover alone. Well, of course, my mama violated that right in the door. She ran off with her abuser, and my brother and I came home from school. She wasn't there, so we got turned over to DCFS. We went into foster care for about 3 or 4 months. She did what she was supposed to do to get us back. She got us back. They helped her get her own apartment, which is a part of the program to help her stay away from her abusive boyfriend. And we thought for the first time in life that we finally have a normal life. Now, granted, the apartment was in the projects, but we didn't care because this was the first time we had an actual 3-bedroom apartment where each one of us had our own bedroom. And I was so glad to be telling my brother to get out of my room. Mm-hmm. You know, and he was happy the same way. And we often got bullied a lot. But to my surprise, my mom got right back with her abusive boyfriend. Mm-hmm. You know, again, he tried to make us think that he was done beating on her, mm-hmm. which we knew that was probably untrue. But we were kids. It wasn't like we had no say-so in this. By this time, I'm like 12 years old, okay? So my mom had went to visit one of her old friends, and I went with her, and I wanted to stay there. I tried everything in my power to stay out of the household of my mom, even though I love my mom. But when he was around, I never wanted to be in the house because I didn't want to witness that abuse. This is what I say, how it really affects kids, even if the man don't touch the child. It's a mental effect.
You said you loved your mom.
I loved her. I loved her dearly. I didn't have a choice but to love her. That was the woman that brought me in this world. You know, I didn't even know the things that she did was bad, you know? But she was my mom at the end of the day, you know? So she left me at her friend's house at my request this time. And she told me she'd come back and get me, but she didn't come back and get me. Instead, she sent the abusive boyfriend to get me. And when he came to get me, he didn't just grab and go. He wanted to stick around and drink all the way until he got filthy drunk. When he got filthy drunk, luckily he wasn't driving. We finally left and went home. We went home on public transportation. I had to be the bigger person to watch out for when it was time for us to get to our stop because he was so drunk, he fell out on the train. And so when it was time to get off, I woke him up and said, hey, it's our stop. We get off the train, we walking back towards the building, he wobbling because he's still drunk. So I'm just way ahead of him. I'm not finna wait for him. It was middle of the night, I was tired, I was ready to get home. I just knew when I got up to the apartment, my mom and my brother was gonna be knocked out asleep, but I was surprised when I heard noise and music coming from the apartment. And so he's still trying to get to the building while I'm already at the apartment. I'm knocking on the door. My brother opened up the door And he say, when he opened up the door, I'm looking at him like, and I'm listening to all this laughing and giggling. And so when you come in the apartment, you have to walk down the hallway before you get to the area where they was. My mama laying on a sofa on her back with just a t-shirt on, her panties, no pants, and there was two guys hovering over her. I have no clue what they were doing, but I knew it wasn't a good scene. I knew it wasn't a good scene, especially when I had this drunk, abusive boyfriend behind me. So I knew that once he walked in the door and saw that, this was going to look bad. But I don't think my mom thought she was doing anything wrong because she didn't even budge. She just continued to lay there and they continued to do whatever it was that they were doing. And the minute he walked in there, he saw that, he started fussing and cussing and he put them out. You know, and so they left and went to their apartment. I ran behind them and I said, look, this man is about to beat on my mama. I said, I need some help. And they's like, oh, he ain't gonna touch your mom. Just go back over there. If he do, let us know, you know, we'll come and break it up. Okay, fine. I go back in the apartment. They still arguing. I just pass them up and keep on going to my bedroom and close the door. When I open up the door, I can hear my mom. No, before I open up the door, my mom started screaming my name. It was rumbling all around like he was throwing her up against the walls or something. I don't know. I'm in the room with the door closed. And I ran quickly back to the guys and told them, this dude is over here beating on my mom. They came over there to try to calm the situation down. I don't know what happened because I didn't go back in the apartment when they went over there, but whatever they did, they beat him up pretty bad. Like he was bloody, battered, and he was taken out by ambulance on a stretcher. That part I won't forget. I was actually happy because he finally got a taste of his own medicine. Now you know how it feels to put your hand up against the defensive woman and you couldn't even fight these two little young boys. Plus you drunk. Why are you trying to fight two young guys? You know? So the next day, my brother told me everything because he stayed in the apartment and he watched what happened. He told me everything them boys had did to her. Hit him with a pole, hit him with a chair. They really beat him up. And so...
Did he ever tell you what those same two young boys did to your mom?
No, my mom did. So my mom finally told me what they were doing. She said they was putting a homemade tattoo on her of my name. Right below her buttocks. My right hand to God. She showed it to me. They got to SAND before he got into that apartment. They never got to the RNA. That's all they got. It was like in green writing. There was a homemade tattoo. I don't know why she tattooed my name below her buttocks, but I did feel special that my name was going on her body. After that, I'm thinking, okay, we done with him. He ain't never coming back around. He done got his butt whooped. Ain't nobody finna, we ain't got to worry about him no more or anything else. And a week later, to the exact, I was in my room sleep. And my mama had got into so many fights and called my name because she knew that I would be the one that'll run for help till I heard my name being called in my sleep, but I thought it was a dream. I finally woke up and I actually saw that she was calling my name and I jumped up and I looked out and you can see the front door from my doorway of my bedroom and somebody was kicking the door in. But I didn't know who was that kicking the door in. All I could see was a foot. And so my mom grabbed me and my brother and she ran us to the back room. And when we got to the back room, she closed her bedroom door and locked it. But he came back there and he kicked that door in. And when he kicked that door in, he was mad. Like his eyes was dark. He was filled with so much rage. Like I had never seen him. Now, when you ask me when it got to the worst, that was at the worst. I had never seen him that angry. Like he was really mad. And the first thing he said was, I'm going to do to you everything that those guys did to me. So this was revenge. And I thought about when my brother told me what those guys did to him. And so I'm scared.
And you said they was beating him with poles.
Yeah. And he said everything they hit me with, I'm only gonna hit you with it.
And this is when he came out of the hospital?
Yeah.
He just came back home?
He just came back. I think he been out the hospital. I think that she finally had, probably ignored his calls or whatever. Whatever he did, whatever she did to push that button, he came back for revenge.
And this was her first time seeing him since he...
Yep, since that day. That was the first time we had saw him. He jumped in. The first thing he did was grab the fan. He picked up the fan and he threw it on her. Of course, my mama's screaming. I'm looking at the door. I kept trying to get up, running to the door, because I'm always the one running to try to get help. He threw me back on the bed, pushed me back on the bed. We're in a little small, cramped up space now, so it wasn't easy to get around him. And then he picked up something else and started hitting her with it. Then he snatched the whole television. We only had one television in the house, and it was in my mom's bedroom. He snatched, the television was still plugged up in the wall. He snatched the whole television out the wall and he threw it on her legs. When he threw it on her legs, my mom fell on the side of the bed, and that's when he reached over and he just started punching her. He just started punching her. Because he had got close to her to start punching her, I had access to that door. So I ran out that door, and I could see him running behind me. I was scared out of my wits. I could see him running behind me, and I could see my mama running behind him. Because he kicked the door in, it was easy to just run straight out the front door. I ain't have to worry about unlocking no locks or none of that other stuff. And I was scared. I ran downstairs to a friend's house that I knew had a telephone. And I called the police, and we found out that an ambulance was downstairs. And my friend mom asked me, I could still hear my mom screaming. I can tell that the fight had moved to the hallway, because I could hear her screaming. It was like echoing through the whole building. People was coming out of their apartments. This is in the middle of the night. People was coming out of their apartments and stuff. I could hear her screaming like, oh, it was the most horrible, horrible sound ever. And finally it stopped. And so when the ambulance came, because she had told me I could just stay there, and until the police had got there. When the ambulance came, we went down there to see if that was her in there. It was her in there. They was working on her. She was really battered, bruised, and the police pulled up. And so when the police pulled up, they wanted me to tell them what happened. And I told them up until the point where I ran out the door. And the police was like directly behind the ambulance. So I could see through their windshield right into the window of the ambulance. And then the ambulance pulled off. They told me that, oh, your mama be okay. And so we're gonna let you stay with the neighbor until we can reach out to family. And so later that evening, the police came back to the neighbor's house. And I was standing behind her when they opened up the door. And they saw me standing there, and they told her to step out. She stepped out and she came back in like nothing was wrong. And then she walked towards the hallway of her apartment, and she just broke down screaming. And then I asked her what was wrong, and she told me nothing. But she's screaming. And then somebody started knocking on her door again. So I thought it was the police again, and she told me to go answer the door. And I went and answered the door. It was somebody else who heard her screaming. So they came to check on her to see if she was okay. All this time, I'm seeing detectives going in and out of our apartment. Now, that's the first time I ever seen that out of all the time this man had abused my mama. And so when I seen them going in and out of the apartment, I knew it had to be serious this time. And so when her friend came to check on her, they asked her what was wrong. And I guess she thought she was whispering where I couldn't hear, but I heard her say, them kids' mama just died. And that was the end of my world. Yeah, they never told us that she had passed away. They left it up to family members or something to tell. And then my mom's funeral was the first funeral I had ever went to. I kept thinking about the officers telling me when the ambulance pulled off that she was going to be okay. But she wasn't, you know. Luckily, the story I gave them and where I think that he may be going, which was that same place we stayed at when my mom told us we was going home, that's where they found the man. And they locked him up.
Thanks to you.
Mm-hmm. So my grandmother took me and my brother in, even though me and my brother had two different fathers, which I will always be grateful for. I love my grandmother. That's my heart. That's my pride right there. But again, I think my grandmother did the same thing my father did. She didn't talk it over with my grandfather. She just made that decision without him.
Something.
I think she did because they argued a lot about me and my brother being there. My grandmother was thinking she was doing the right thing by taking both of us in because she didn't want us to be split up. But I don't think that she talked it over with my grandfather because my grandfather made my life a living hell. He made our life a living hell. That is when the mental abuse started. Like, he would call me names. He would say bad things about my mama. I don't think it's a good idea to say bad thing about a child's mom when they just lost their child. They lost their mother. You know, they still grasping that. You know, he would whoop me and my brother for every little thing that we did. We couldn't watch television. We had to stay in a room every time we came home from school. We couldn't go outside and play like normal kids. We just couldn't do anything. Anything that we did, we got in trouble if he didn't like it. Then my father was still coming over to his parents' house abusing me. Like, they had extra rooms in the house, even though he lived with his girlfriend. They got the basement, they got the attic. They never saw anything suspicious about him taking me alone up in the attic or taking me alone down in the basement.
And by this time for you, it's probably like a routine. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
dad's
it's
here.
normal now. This is a part of the norm now. They never saw anything wrong with that.
And he's never actually penetrating you. He's
No,
just
it's always
always.
the same way. It was always the same way. He's never actually penetrated me. And so my brother, he got smart enough and got out. He went back to my mom's old friend that we went live with on and off, and that's where he stayed until he became an adult. But then I got left with my grandfather to continue to take on the mental abuse. The mental abuse had got so bad till I begged my father, even though he was sexually abusing me, but I begged him to come live with him because I didn't want to be there no more. It was horrible. And so, again, my father let me move in with him and his girlfriend. Again, I don't think he ever talked it over with her. The reason why I know this time is because I would hear them argue and I would hear her say, what I'm gonna do with another child in this house? I can't even take care of the ones I got. What I'm gonna do with another child in this house? So I knew it had a lot to do with me. Once again, she would leave. She would take her kids with her and leave me behind with him. And this is when he started introducing me to porn. I had never watched porn before. I didn't even know nothing about no porn. He had me watching porn. He would show me home videos of his cousin that was also a predator with other little young girls. And I think he was
Who was showing you this?
my father. I think he was doing that to try to make me believe that he wasn't doing nothing wrong, that this is normal. This is just what I'm thinking this is what he was doing, because what other reason why you be showing me about your cousin with these young girls? And then at times he wanted to get me on video. I'm like, no, you know. He tried to get me to suck his penis. I knew that wasn't happening because I remember the time that one guy did it and I didn't like the taste. It wasn't happening. He never forced it again. By this time, he had to moved on to doing oral on me. So he wasn't doing oral on me before. But by this time, my father had moved to doing oral on me this time. And he always liked to put on a porn movie. I don't know if he thought, well, maybe the porn movie would make me more excited about him touching me. But this is when he was doing that to me. The stepmother had got to a point where if she wasn't leaving me alone with him, she wouldn't even let me in if he wasn't there. Like, if I came and knocked on the door, she'd say, who is it? I'd say, Sandra, Rodney not here. And then she wouldn't open the door.
Where would you go?
I would be on the streets. At times, I felt like I was homeless. I would literally be on the streets because sometimes he didn't come home. Sometimes he stayed out all night.
How old were you?
Probably 12 or 13, 12. And so, you know, I had some friends. I would spend the night at some of the friends' house if they parent would let me stay there. You know what I'm saying? But I pretty much felt like I was homeless. You know, didn't have nowhere to go. And so one day, during my father's sexual act, his girlfriend had just left. I think she was on her way to work. And soon as she left, he turned on his favorite thing, the porn. And he started molesting me. I was laying on my stomach. He was on my back humping on me. And all we both heard was, "What are you doing?" Like she came back. Like we didn't even hear jingling of keys, door handles turn. It was almost like she tipped.
Okay.
So she left off and she came back and she caught him in the act. Caught him smack dead in the act. She's like, "What are you doing? She ain't nothing but a baby. I can't believe you doing this." And he jumped up quick. We both jumped up like that. It was scary because when she just opened her mouth and said something, like neither one of us heard her come back in the house. She jumped up. She left out the house. He went running after her. So for a minute, I was happy because I'm thinking it's finally finna end. You know, he finally got caught. You know, he got caught in the act. This is finna be over. Believe it or not, she did not leave him. Instead, I had to leave. I don't know what him or her talked about, but I had to leave. So he asked his parents if I could stay over there temporarily until he could find somewhere else for me to go. I go back over there and stay with them. Had to go back through that mental abuse with my grandfather. I had a lot of problems with my stomach. Like it was hurting really, really bad. And my grandmama took me to the hospital to see what was wrong with my stomach. And they told her that I had was it a tubal infection? And so I later learned that you have to be having sex to get a tubal infection, was what I was told. And so I was wondering why when the doctor said I had a tubal infection, why my grandmother had that look on her face. And so the doctor told my grandmother to step out because they wanted to talk to me alone. And so when the lady asked me, the doctor asked me, she's like, "So how long have you been having sex?" That was probably the first time I was about to finally tell on my father. But I just told her I'm not having sex. And she's like, "Well, you can tell me." I said, "I'm not having sex."
But you weren't having sex.
Really? No, that's what I'm saying. So, but my grandmother, she must have picked up on that because she brought me into the bathroom and she was like, "I got a question to ask you and I want you to be honest." She said, "Is your father touching you?" And I told my grandmother the truth. Nothing happened. Finally, his girlfriend, I ain't gonna say put her out, she moved, she left. He moved back over to his parents' house where I was already currently staying. My grandfather couldn't stand the ground that I walked on to a point where once my father moved in, he stayed upstairs in the attic. Every time my grandfather saw me, he'd be like, "Go up there with your dad." They knew he was molesting me. Both of them did. And
Especially because you told your grandma.
Right. And my grandmama told him. And I know he knew because he told my father, if she ever tell us you touched her again, we're going to take her to the police department. That's all he told him.
Who said that?
My grandfather told that to my father. So now I'm being sent to the attic with him. He really takes advantage. He ain't got no girlfriend now. I became his sex toy. Any and every time he wanted it. I couldn't say no to it. So that was the time for the first time in my life, I started contemplating suicide. Because I just felt like my life wasn't worth nothing. And I wanted to be with my mama.
You know, it's crazy, like all the abuse that your mother had you endure. It was still better than the abuse of your father.
And then he ended up finally meeting a new girlfriend. And I was, skeptical about moving in with the new girlfriend, especially after how the old girlfriend treated me. But the new girlfriend actually accepted me with open arms. And she didn't have any small kids at the apartment, but she did have a 2-bedroom apartment. So I did have an opportunity to have my own bedroom. And I was only hoping that my father didn't mess things up with her, because she was really nice and she was nice to me. And I had friends from school that didn't stay far, so I was really in a quicker area, okay? So one night, he came into the room once again, even with the new girlfriend, and he tried to climb on top of me. But by this time, I have enough heart to say no. I never did that. I never had enough heart to say no to him prior to this moment. I was like, no. I just kept telling him no. The next morning, his girlfriend took me to the store, and on the way back, she said, I got to ask you a question, and I need you to be very honest. And she asked me that my father tried to come in there and touch me. And at first I was afraid to tell her, because I was afraid what was going to happen to the both of us if I told her the truth. So I told her the truth, and she said she knew it. And I asked her, how did she know? And she said, because I kept hearing you tell him, no, don't come in here. No. I knew that's what he was doing. And so she asked me how long this been going on. I told her since I was 6. And she was like in really, really disbelief. And so out of everybody that knew I was being abused by my father, she was the first one to turn them into the police. Nobody else prior to her. So she turned them into the police. And that's when I became a ward to the state. I became a ward to the state. And the first person I asked to, first person I stayed with when I became to the ward to the state was my auntie. And I moved in with her and her kids and her boyfriend. And so whenever you are in a state system, you automatically assume you're in a safe haven. Regardless of where you're living at, you're going to automatically assume state ain't going to put you nowhere that you're going to be abused. But even at my auntie house, I was abused. I woke up in the middle of the night with my auntie's boyfriend on top of me. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't even think he was doing anything. I just knew that he was on top of me. He was very drunk. And I remember him whispering, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm sorry. This is not right. He got up and he left. And he never tried it again. Now, like with all my other abusers, I never told nobody, because I was always fear of retaliation, or fear nobody would believe me, or not really knowing that what was being done to me was wrong. But by the time my uncle did what he did to me, because I always considered him my uncle, I knew that was wrong at that time. But I was still afraid to tell, because I didn't know where I would end up at. I started talking to another, I had a boyfriend at the time. He was an older guy. And probably about a month or so, a little bit more, after my moving in with my auntie, I found that I was pregnant. With my,
How much older was this guy than you?
he was 7 years older than me. So if I was 15, he had to be 22. He was 7 years older than me. And he was a person that preyed on me for a while too, but I gave in because I just was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Were you promiscuous at this time?
I wouldn't say I was promiscuous. I just wanted a boyfriend.
And that was your
I
only
wasn't
boyfriend?
sleeping. Yeah, he was the only one. So I had no doubt when I got pregnant that he was the father of my child. And so, but he never was there supportively for me.
So you have a child by this guy, and how are you taking care of this child? How are you going to school. You're still in high school. Like what?
Yeah, I was still in high school because I was awarded to the state. The state paid for childcare for me. So by this time, I'm not living with my auntie no more. They put me in a teen shelter, and the teen shelter had babysitters on premises.
Oh,
So we got to leave all of us got to leave the kids in the sitter while we went to school.
wow. And
So we didn't have to take them out.
and you come home and take care of a kid.
Yeah.
Go to school. Come home. Take care of kids. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, we were being watched because we are state wards, so DCFS was watching us.
but after the girlfriend tells the police, does your father not get arrested?
Let me tell you something. I went to court because we went to court for his first day, and he never showed up, so a warrant for his arrest was put out. Now, they claimed they had been looking for him. He never served no time because they claimed they had been looking for him, but I don't believe that to be true. I later sent for records because I needed it for my own mental health reasons. But I later sent, and this was recently, for my DCFS records when I was a child. I couldn't even believe half of the stuff I read up in there. But I learned by reading in those records that they had been going to my grandmother's house looking for him. And my grandmother was telling them that he lived in Milwaukee. He never lived nowhere but at her place, besides with other friends. So they protected him. So no, he never served any time.
Wow. Okay. So, you're going through life, 15, 16, 17. At what point do you have another child?
So I was 17 when I was 16 when I had her. I was 18 when I had the second child. You know, by that time I was on my own, but prior to being on my own, I was bounced from foster home to foster home. In two of those foster homes, I was sexually abused. In two of them, one of them I was physically abused, and two of them I was sexually abused.
By who?
In one of the foster homes, it was about a foster dad. And after I wrote my book, one of his other foster kids came out to me and told me that they were too molested by him and some of the other girls who lived there was molested by him. Let me tell you something. This old grumpy man was about 60-some years old, calling himself, coming into my room, climbing on top of me while my baby laid in her crib next to me. Like he had no type of nothing when it came to my child. And I remember waking up looking at him like, what do he think he doing? He was really old and frail, like he couldn't do much. So he just climbed on top of me, and when he realized he couldn't do nothing, he just got up and left. Like, are you serious? But now I got a baby, and I got to think about her, and I got to protect her. I don't want to be here. I'm scared you might do something to my baby. You know what I'm saying? So I can't think about myself no more.
Wow. Okay. So you think that your first baby daddy is the father of...
Yeah, I originally thought he was the baby father because he and I was in a supposedly exclusive full-blown relationship, but I learned that he was still messing around with his other baby mama, and she was pregnant. She had got pregnant by him, which he tried to deny and say it wasn't his baby. So that made me mad, and I ended up having a one-night stand with one of my coworkers. And so a month later, I think maybe 6 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. And I didn't think it came from the one-night stand. But then once the baby was born and she didn't look like she had a mixture in her like my oldest daughter, I'm like, this can't be his child.
Wow. And you tell him, and I mean,
he could tell,
anyway.
he could look.
Yeah.
He denied her. He was like, no, that's not mine.
So now you're 2 kids.
Yep, I went back to the guy that I had the one-night stand with, and I let him know. I said the only other person I slept with was you. He denied her. He said he didn't think that was his child, but DNA later on proved him wrong.
Wow. Did he have to pay child support?
No, because by this time she was a full adult.
Wow.
So now he's really trying to make a relationship with her, and she don't want nothing to do with him.
I can see why.
I told him I don't have no control over that.
Right. Okay. So now, 18 years old, 2 kids, you're sort of trying to, I don't know, figure out life.
Figure out
How are
life.
you paying for sitters, or how are you getting money, and how are you going to school?
I didn't. I was well. I was still working. I wasn't going to school at the time. I ended up having to drop out of school, which that was something that I definitely did not want to do. I wanted to graduate with my class, but I was working. I was still awarded to the state till I was 21, so I still depended on them for their support until I was aged out of the program. And then once I aged out of the program, I moved on my own because I had no choice without their support. And I met and married a man.
How'd that go?
Well, it was okay for the first couple years until, he decided to do something stupid and go to jail while I was 3 months pregnant with twins.
Wow.
So he was given 7 years for his crime and he had to do 3.5 years before he came home. So the first 3 years of my life, for the first 3 years of my twins' life, I was a single mom of 4. And that was the most toughest time of being a parent.
I can't even imagine.
I utilized most of that time to go back to school, but it was hard for me to work.
So now you get your life together. You get your life together. He comes home. You try to still rekindle that relationship.
Yeah, after he got out, we decided to get back together. But then he started committing infidelity, and that's what broke the marriage permanently, because the time he was in jail, my life had did a 360 change. I went back to school. I wasn't hanging out. I started going to church, gave my life to Christ. I was a totally different person. I wasn't the same person I was before he went in. And I needed him to have changed his life as well. But when he got out, he proved to me that he hadn't changed.
Yeah. It's just insane. It's like the government became your partner
Yeah,
and
yeah. And
and
so
their
I didn't have no
parents.
choice but to depend on public assistance to get me through until I can get on my own feet. I went back to school, got a degree, and when I got the first degree, which was associate degree, then I got the first real job.
Wow.
You
You,
know.
you told me you were heartbroken after he didn't was unable to come back and make that family nucleus.
Yeah, I did, because I really thought that we can be a family, and for the first time in life, I didn't have to be a single parent.
Right.
You know. So I wanted that, and it just didn't happen. I even wanted more kids, and it just seemed like everything just went out the door.
Okay. So now you sort of turn your back on God.
I did, because I felt like God had failed me, because I thought I was doing everything right. You know, um, he left. My oldest daughter became very rebellious. She started running away from home. I was falling out with my family big time. And I'm thinking, what am I doing to deserve all of this? And so it just got to a point where I didn't care no more. I didn't care about what people thought about me. I didn't care how people perceived me. I started turning to the internet, looking for friendship, you know? And it led me down the road of meeting a lot of different men off the internet, just for fun, just for friendship, or whatever I got out of it.
Are you hooking up with these men?
Yeah, I was hooking up with them. I was. I was absolutely, summer was just for that,
Yeah.
just for that purpose. And then An old friend of mine introduced me to the menage a trois world, you know, something I had never did before. And when he introduced me to that world, that was something that I actually enjoyed. So I started meeting females off the internet to hook up with some of the guys that I was with. You know, some of them wasn't into that, you know, but that's what I was looking for.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Your grandma passes away.
Yeah, my grandmother passes away, and she was like, out of everybody in my family, the only somebody that really truthfully cared and loved me.
Yeah.
And when she passed away, that was the end of my world. And I remember going to her funeral, and I was sitting at her funeral, and I was watching the memorial video, and it just shows her life going back through the years with all her kids and her grandkids. And not one time did it show any pictures of me or my kids as if we were not a part of the family. That was the most painful thing ever. And so at that point, I knew I had had enough with this family, and I wanted to find out who my real family was, because I was told over the years there was rumors in the family that my father was possibly not my father. So I decided to do an Ancestry DNA test. And when I did the DNA test, before I did it, I wanted to make sure that some members of his family had already taken the test so I can have something to compare it to. And for a long time, I couldn't find that nobody had did the test. And then I found out my cousins who lived out in Texas, they took the test. So when my results came back, they was the first names I was looking for to pop up on my results. And when I didn't see their name on the results, I knew right then and there that this was not my blood family. So I went through all those years of mental abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, fights, spats, everything for absolutely nothing. And then it took probably another year to find out who my real father was. But by this time, he was already deceased. And finding out who my real father was probably the sweet of the bitter. But the bitter was when I was asking, because I saw this last name pop up on my matches, and I started calling different family members, asking them if they knew who this last name belonged to. Everybody, no, I ain't never heard of that. Why you asking me that? My one uncle in Detroit. I asked him. He said, why you asking me that? I said, because I did an Ancestry DNA test and I'm trying to find my father. Oh, this one, no, he's not my father. DNA don't lie. Well, I don't know who it can be then. I said, well, that's what I'm trying to find out. He's like, well, you know, your mama was something else. You know, your mama was out there. Your mama used to do this. Your mama used to do that. But he turned around and told me, you know, your mama was a pimp, right? A pimp. And she used to bring me girls. He talked about it like it was just this big, nice thing. Like, oh, she used to pimp these girls, these beautiful girls. She used to bring me girls. I didn't want to hear that. My mama ain't here to defend herself, so I cut him off. Calls more family members asking about this last name. Got to my other uncle, same thing. He's like, well, you know, your mama used to be a prostitute. Now I did hear that my mama used to be a prostitute, and he was like, it could have been one of her pimps. That's your father. So don't be surprised if you find out it is. Then he turned around and said, and she used to be a pimp. I said, yeah, I heard that. So after this other uncle, this is the uncle I'm really close to. This is the uncle I love and trust. After he told me my mama was a pimp, that's when my life reflected back to them days that she used to leave me with all these random men. And I said to myself, by this time I'm in counseling because my whole trauma had came back before me and I needed counseling. And I said to myself, my mama was not out there pimping me, was she? I believe my mama was pimping me. my counselor tried to get me not to believe it. He felt like, I was trying to put more than one thing boggled up. I said, well, you explain to me. If I have a so-called father and a father side of the family, and I have her friend who she always left us with, so she had places to send me if she needed somebody to care for me. What was her purpose for leaving me with these random men? What was her purpose for leaving me with my uncle in Detroit? She had somebody who could have kept me. You're not going to ever, ever from this day forward make me believe that my mama did not pimp me. But I still love her. I still love her. I have no choice but to love her, and I forgive her. I will never know the truth, but in my heart, I believe that's what she did to me.
As you're searching this ancestry, you make sure you swab everybody in your house, including your grandchild. Tell me about that.
Yes, after my DNA discovery, my daughter was like, Mom, I think we all should, do a DNA. And I thought it was a good idea to just do a DNA on my entire family so we can build our family tree. It was definitely not about looking for nobody's baby daddy because we all knew who our baby daddies were. But my granddaughter was one of the first results that came back. And when her results came back and I opened up her results, I saw a familiar face, like somebody I've been knowing their entire life. I know her family, I know her parents, I know her kids, her siblings, I know everybody. And I couldn't understand how she could be a match to my granddaughter because she wasn't a match to any of us, And so when I had my daughter to also take the Ancestry DNA test, I had to really, really dig deeper into trying to figure out why this person came up as a match. And when I noticed that she was only coming up as a match on my daughter's side, I was thinking at first maybe it's my daughter's father, which I thought was my boyfriend. And after I searched for more family members on her match and started seeing the last names that she was matching with, my sister helped me to remember where I lived at the time I got pregnant, which was with my auntie. And when I reflected back on that time, it brought up the long lost memory of my uncle climbing on top of me, which I had buried that years ago because it never happened again. And really, I never thought anything did happen. So when I started putting two and two together, I realized that he is the father of my child. So I actually learned that one of my childhood abusers fathered my child, and I never knew that until just 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
My daughter was 36 years old when she found out that the man that raised her as her dad is not her father, but the uncle that she's always knew and loved and grew close to is her actual father. So that was the downfall to me. That spiraled me everywhere emotionally. I slipped into a real deep depression. I couldn't go to work because I was I was like a zombie. I never slept. I had a hard time grasping the information, and I wanted so badly to tell my auntie about it, but I didn't want to tell her before I told my daughter. My daughter needed to know this before anybody else do. And but I knew I had to hurry up, even though people kept telling me, give yourself some time to process the information. Don't be so quick to go tell. I figured if I found out by looking up this person's match to my daughter, that same person is going to find out too. So I need to hurry up and say something before it gets out. And so finally, when I got my daughter up here, because she didn't understand why I needed her to come to where I was at, I wanted to tell her in front of my counselor in case she needed counseling after that. The same day my daughter came up, the other person figured it out. The exact same day. What was the odds to that? Before you know it, my phone was ringing off the hook because now the rumors is going through my family that my daughter may be this person's child. The rumors just flying through the family. So everybody calling my phone, and I knew what they was calling for, and I didn't answer the phone because I'm not doing anything before I tell my daughter. But my auntie called, and I don't know why I felt the need to answer her phone call. My auntie was the one that I lived with. She was the one that her boyfriend climbed on top of me. And I said, let me answer it. Even though I hadn't talked to my daughter yet, but I said, let me answer the call. I answered the call, and she was like, so what's up with this I'm hearing about this going around? She didn't say what it was. She just said, what's up with this I'm hearing about? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, but I know right now I can't talk about anything. And she was like, why not? I mean, everybody else knows. I said, well, I don't know how everybody else knows. They don't know for me because I hadn't opened up my mouth about anything. And she was like, well, did you go call so-and-so and so-and-so? I said, no, I have not called anybody. And she's like, well, I just need to know, how did this happen? Where was I at when it happened? And, she really wanted the details. And as much as I wanted to share the details with her, I just couldn't because I had came this close to getting my daughter down here. And this was the day that I was supposed to tell her. And she just seemed like she couldn't understand that. She kept trying to find ways to push it out of me. And when I wouldn't give in, she was like, well, that's okay because I'm going to come up with my own conclusion. And she hung up on me. That broke me again. I went to my car at the age of 52 years old and I cried for a long time. 52, crying. Because I'm thinking, this is my auntie. And all you can say is, I come up with my own conclusions and click. My family, my Darvo.
So you finally get to speak to your daughter.
Yeah.
And
we went to the counselor. I started off from
this uncle that you've known all your life.
all my life. I had, over the years, I've told my kids about me being abused, but I've never went deep into it. Like I just went deep into it with you. So they knew about the abuse. So when I got to the counselor, I wanted to start there so she'll understand what happened. And I got to the point of him, getting on top of me, but I kept on going with the abuse all the way up until the DNA results. And so I was like, so this person is not your dad. And she looked at me, she said, I knew it. I knew it. I knew this is what you was gonna tell me. And she said, you know how I knew? She said, I knew because you kept trying to get me to come down here right after them results came back. She said, I knew that had to do with them results. I said, yeah, I'm sure you probably picked that part up, but you probably ain't gonna believe who is your dad. She was like, well, who? And when I told him it was the uncle, she was like, you can just see the shock and she was very emotional. Like she couldn't believe it. Like, Mama, are you serious? She's like, oh my God. But then her shock turned into remorse for me. That was one thing I appreciated.
Wow.
It turned into remorse for me because as I was telling her, I was crying and she knew that I was young. She knew that I was taken advantage of, and she was like, and so the counselor was asking her how she feel. She said, well, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting to hear this part. She's like, but I'm feeling sorry for my mama at this moment because all this stuff happened to my mama and I never knew it. So I had my daughter on my side with this whole process. And, but afterwards I started hearing rumors about what people was adding to the story. Like nobody knew nothing about the story except for me. And so it just got to a point where I decided to tell my truth. And I wrote a book, NPE, Birthing an NPE. My family is my Darvo, my path to healing. And I changed my number that I hid over 20 years, and I just started life over.
Praise God.
And I left everything in the past. I wanted so badly to utilize my right to have him arrested since the statute of limitations was lifted for childhood sexual abuse. But I didn't want to do anything that was going to hurt my daughter even more. And so I asked my daughter, what did she feel? And she was like, Mama, just leave it alone. You told me it only happened once. You said that he apologized at the time that he did it. Just leave it alone. And she said, give me a chance to talk to him. Let me talk to him.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for her, he'd be in jail.
Yeah, I can't even imagine a case getting opened up with a 54-year-old woman and this 70-something-year-old man.
Yeah,
and because DNA doesn't lie, there is nothing that he could say that would have kept him out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
That is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
What did he say when he found out?
Well, I didn't get a chance to tell him because after the rumor got started, he changed his number. So I had no way of contacting him no more. I had his number for a long time because he was like the family maintenance person, so I can call him anytime I needed him. But he changed his number, so I had no way of reaching him. Somehow, my daughter got a hold to his number, and my daughter called him. And my daughter said, he told her, why is your mama going around telling people that I'm your dad? And my daughter said, well, DNA don't lie. And he's tried to tell her that ancestry stuff ain't real. That don't mean nothing just because it come back saying that. And I'm not finna go take no DNA test. I'm not finna pay for no test. He never denied ever touching me. That is the part that still gets me today. That you worried about what this DNA said. You worried about whether or not you her father. But not one time did you say, I never touched your mother. So that just goes to show that you are guilty of touching me at a time where I didn't give you permission to do it, and I was underage and you was well above age.
How many children do you have?
I have 7 now.
7 kids.
Yeah.
What are their ages?
The oldest one is 37. Under her is 35. I have a set of twins that are 30. Then I got 3 little ones, ages 7 and twins 4.
How old are you?
53.
53 years old.
53 years old with a 4-year-old twins and a 7-year-old.
How in the world do you have 4-year-old twins? How do you give birth at 48 years old?
It was tough, but I did it. I decided that I wanted more kids. Came across a community called TTC, which stands for Trying to Conceive, in case you never knew that. And I saw some videos of single moms by choice, which I didn't know was such a thing. And I decided I wanted to become a single mom by choice. My 4 kids that I had earlier, I was a single mom, but it wasn't by choice. This was a decision I made solely. And so I went through IVF and I had 3 more kids. Originally, the original plan was to have 1, but after I had her, I realized she needed a sibling more close to her age since all her siblings were adults. Yeah. So I decided to do it a second time, but then the egg split and I ended up with twins.
How did you pay for this?
Actually, the insurance that I had through my job covered it 100%. I paid $35 as a copay. That's it. Once I found out my insurance was covering that was all she wrote.
And they thought that your fertility...
I was not given a good prognosis when I first went to the fertility doctor because of my age. I went to the fertility doctor, I think, when I was 45. And he's like, I was 44 when I went. And he was like, women over 40 years old doesn't have much success rate. All the insurance company is not going to pay for it and all of this other stuff. And I said, well, I'm thinking to myself, I had to have a referral to even go there. So why would my insurance not pay for it when they approved the referral for me to go? So when I called my insurance company back, she told me, well, we don't make decisions just on age solely. We make the decision based on a lot of things. And one of the things was my ovarian reserve. And at the time, my ovarian reserve was that of a younger woman. So that means that I had a higher success rate in conceiving using IVF. And that is what happened.
Do you feel like it's unfair for you to bring children into this world without a father?
I think I would have felt like that if I wouldn't have never experienced it. Because I experienced being a single mom not by choice, why is it unfair? Because most of us end up being single parents anyway, even if we're a single dad or a single mom, because when the relationship splits, it's just really difficult to co-parent. I'm teaching my 7-year-old now because she's the only one that's old enough to understand. But I'm teaching her now how she was conceived. So she does know that she was conceived using a donor. She always asks me all the time, "Can I call her donor?" And I told her no, I don't have a way of calling her donor. But she is understanding that she doesn't have a father. And, so far it's not bothering her. I don't know if it'll bother her later on in life. But because of DNA, people like Ancestry and 23andMe, eventually she's going to find, other family members and possibly even her real father, We do have, I'm in contact, they don't know about it though, but I'm in contact with another mom who used the same donor. So we do know of 2 other children. We call them diblings. It's the short term for siblings by donor siblings, diblings. So she got 2 dibling sisters.
You told me you had reached a point in your life where you still needed love. You still was in search of that love.
I am, because I never knew what love feel like. And it bothers me because now I realize that I didn't show my adult kids that type of love because I didn't know how to show them love because nobody never loved me. I didn't know. People tell you all day long they love you, but they never show it. So I never really had genuine love besides with my grandmother. That is the only person. Now I've had a couple of cousins that showed me genuine love, but my grandmother, now that was my heart. My kids, they're my genuine love. So I'm different with my little ones. When God blessed me to have the 3 little ones that I had, I vowed to be so different with them than I was with the oldest kid. I made mistakes with them, and I'm into those mistakes. Even though I tried to show them a better life than I had, but I still could have done something different. So yes, I'm still trying to find love.
What was one of your biggest regrets as a mother? One of those mistakes that you felt like you made?
Disciplines. I hate that I whipped my kids with belts. I would never do that to my little 3 because I realized that is one generational curse that needs to stop, especially in the Black community. I only whipped my kids because that was what was done to me. And I thought that's what we're supposed to do to our kids. But I later regretted that and wish I can go back and take that time back, but I can't.
What's something that you would tell that younger version of yourself, maybe that 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, living life and going through it and just trying to figure out and navigate what's this all really mean? What's something that you would tell her?
I would tell my younger self that you are somebody, you will be somebody, you are loved, you are beautiful, and you are a survivor. Don't ever let nobody tell you that you're not going to be nothing or you're not going to go any places, because you can be whoever you want to be and whatever you set your soul out to be. And always protect your mental health and protect your body.
This is Trappin Anonymous. My name is Chris Dowes. Let's get it.
Thank you. Thank you.